What's going on, pursuers? Welcome to The Pursuit of Calling, the podcast that provides you with the strategies and tools needed to successfully discover and pursue your calling. Whether it's through inspiring stories, thought-provoking interviews, or quick, insightful episodes on personal growth and development, we've got you covered. I'm your host, Thomas Carney. Enjoy the episode. Your environment is either accelerating you toward living in your calling or quietly keeping you stuck. No man lacks purpose. What a lot of men lack, though, is the right environment to grow into that purpose well. So there was a season where I kept asking myself a question that I couldn't shake. I was wondering, why do I feel stuck? I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I was a full-time web and mobile app developer. I was dealing with chronic pain. I was trying to build my coaching business on the side, stay consistent with my podcast, grow in my faith, read my Bible, and still have something left in the tank at the end of the day to have a life with my friends. And honestly, it felt like I was just grinding my life straight into the ground. But what made it worse was this feeling that I should be able to handle all of it. Until one moment that I remembered from around 3 years into my employment that shifted everything for me. I was sitting at my desk during work, and I just asked myself this question. I just had this realization. I was like, is this it? I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to college, got a degree, got a job in that degree, and now I'm like 3 years into this career, and I was wondering, is this my life now? And I didn't realize it at the time, but that question would eventually force me to confront something deeper about my environment, my calling, and what was actually keeping me stuck where I was. You don't drift into growth. You don't drift into purpose. You drift into whatever your environment, as in the people you surround yourself with, in the books you read, the other inputs that you take in, the podcasts that you listen to. You drift into what your environment is influencing you toward. Maybe your environment is causing you to drift towards comfort. It's putting you towards comfort. You stay comfortable. Maybe it's influencing you toward distraction. So you're just constantly unfocused on who God's calling you to be. But maybe it's influencing you toward growth. And that's where you stretch. You are being formed whether you realize it or not. Conversations shape your thinking. Content shapes your identity. Relationships shape direction. And those aren't all exclusive or inclusive to those directions. The question is not, am I growing? The question is, what is shaping me? If you want a different life, you need different inputs. You want to be around people who are ahead of you, mentors and coaches. You want to go to places that stretch you, like church, Bible studies, networking groups. You want to read what challenges you. As an example, I constantly talk about John Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, or books from Aristotle, James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, these books that promote growth inside of you and challenge you to be more than who you are. And these things that cause you to expose yourself to environments that disrupt your comfort. Comfort doesn't produce clarity. Exposure does. A growth environment is defined as a deliberately chosen atmosphere where personal development becomes natural, expected, and consistently reinforced. It's not a feel-good atmosphere. This is an atmosphere that stretches you. It causes you to receive honest feedback. It's forward-focused. And a growth environment is demanding. It pushes you to become who you were created to be. Most people stay stuck because they try to grow in the same place they've always been. They try to gain clarity while consuming confusion about who they are and who they were created to be. They try to step into their calling without changing their surroundings. It just doesn't work. But let me pause for a second and speak directly to something I think a lot of you are feeling. Maybe you're listening to this and thinking, I relate to this, but I feel stuck figuring out what my next step actually is. How do I find that growth environment that you're talking about? I hear you, but how do I find the growth environment? Trust me, you're not alone in that. A lot of men don't struggle with knowing that they have potential. They struggle with actually stepping into that potential consistently, with clarity, structure, and the right environment around them. That's why I created the Pursuer Circle. It's a group coaching experience for Christian men who are in a season of transition and want real clarity on how to grow into their potential in this season of life, on clarity with what God is calling them into in this next season, and how to actually move forward instead of staying stuck in the same aggravating cycles. This isn't just about consuming content. It's not all teaching. It's about action. It's about active growth with other men who are serious about change, growth, and living with excellence. If that's you, if that describes who you are, you can apply with the link in the show notes. I'd love to see you there in the circle. God never intended for us to grow in isolation. In Isaiah chapter 64 verse 8, it said here, "Yet you, Lord, are our Father. We are the clay, you are the potter. We are all the work of your hand." Think about that for a moment. Clay is constantly being shaped by whatever hands it's placed in. And the same is true for us. We're being formed every day by the environments we place ourselves in, the people we listen to, the voices we allow to influence us, and the habits we practice. The question isn't whether you're being shaped. The question is, who is shaping you? Because if you're not intentional, it's easy to be conformed to the patterns of the world around us instead of being transformed into who God created us to become. God often calls us forward, but sometimes our environment keeps pulling us backward. And at some point, we have to ask, is my environment helping God shape me into who he created me to be? Or is it reinforcing the version of me that's afraid to grow? Sometimes obedience isn't just taking action. Sometimes obedience is changing the environment you've been sitting in for far too long. Because your calling requires you to grow. And growth requires putting yourself where God can continue shaping you. Okay, I want you to be honest with yourself this week. What is your environment actually producing in you right now? Is it producing growth or is it producing complacency? Not what you want it to produce, not what you hope it's producing. What is it actually forming in you? Because something is being formed right now, whether you're aware of it or not. So ask yourself this: is my environment helping me become who God is calling me to be, or is it keeping me comfortable with who I already am? And then be real about it. Ask, who is actually shaping my thinking right now? What mentors, what people are in my life? Who are my 5 closest friends? What books am I reading? What TV shows do I watch? What YouTube videos do I watch? What voices are influencing my direction? If nothing changes around you, nothing changes within you. Your next move isn't about learning more. It's about seeking an environment that will cause you to become who you were created to be, and the courage to step into it. If this is hitting you right now, this episode hit you hard, don't just move to your next podcast episode in the queue, because information without reflection just turns into wasted potential. If you're realizing, yeah, my environment is actually a big part of why I feel stuck, then the question isn't, what did you learn today? It's, what are you going to do with these new realizations? That's exactly why I created the Pursuer's Circle. It's a space for men who are done trying to grow in the same environments that keep pulling them back into the same cycles. Men who want real clarity on their calling, structure in their life, and people around them who are actually moving forward and they're not standing still. Because growth doesn't just come from more information, it comes from being in the right environment. If you're in a season where you know something needs to change, but you haven't had the right structure or people around you to change it, this is the next step. You can apply to the link that I put in the show notes. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pursuit of Calling podcast. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, share it directly with a friend. You can share it on social media too, but if you know somebody who is popping up in your head right now that you believe would benefit from being in an environment that would produce growth inside of them so that they can be who God has created them to be, go ahead and share it with them now. And don't forget to give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave an actual comment, because that really does help the algorithm. That also helps me know whether I'm doing a good job or not. You can tell me I'm doing a crappy job, just don't give me a 1-star review, because that don't help me. I guess if you're being honest, I guess you really think I suck. But thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.